Let's get into a little bit of goalie talk. What a perfect day to be doing the blue paint with Carter Hutton. Excited to welcome former NHLer Carter Hutton into the show, back to do his bi-weekly hits on DFO Live. Also, starting goalies with Carter Hutton made its return yesterday, and Hutz, you had a clean sweep on the betting front.
So got it. You know what I mean? I thought I might be a bit rusty, but I took the sure thing there, the over without Swayman starting and the Panthers at home with the banner raising. So it's been a good start, and what a day for goalies. Exciting times.
Yeah, before we talk about the extensions that have happened and even one that hasn't happened, let's take a step back a little bit. You were on the over last night because it was Korpisalo, not Swayman, starting for the Boston Bruins. And I'm sure the Boston Bruins, Cam Neely and company, were sitting there after the fourth and fifth goals going on Korpisalo going, okay, it's a good thing we got Jeremy Swayman locked up. The deal already looks good, right?
Yeah, especially last night. I love the crowd chanting, "We want Swayman" last night down in Florida. So that was good. And, for me, from the other side of it, I've played in regular season games early in the year. It's just a little sloppier. There's more offense. So it's always trickier for a goalie. So when I see a line at 5.5, and especially without a number one starting, that's something that kind of lights up the over in my eyes.
Well, let's talk Linus Ullmark. We're talking Jeremy Swayman. These guys are goalie partners. We know about the big famous hug, something everybody absolutely loved to see. Look, he cashed in today. And, I look at that contract and I'm like, this makes a lot of sense. He didn't get 8 years. He got 4. Okay. But he got a nice AAV to put him up there with the elite goaltenders in the National Hockey League. What do you think about this deal? Do you think in a new system, in a new structure, not having that Boston Bruins way, is he still poised to have that type of success?
Honestly, Cobes, I think he does too. I played with him directly for 3 years in Buffalo, and this was a team where we weren't very good defensively, and Linus was a difference maker every night. I remember a few times I would go in stretches of games where I was hanging on by a thread, how hard I had to compete to try to keep our team in games, where for Linus, it just seemed like this was water off a duck's back. He's a guy that has the mental capacity to manage it, even if there are games where Ottawa's not going to be great defensively. For me, going into this trade, I always thought it's going to be a comfort for him. He is a guy that's been very open about how his family comes first and how he wants to be somewhere. He's got 247 games played now in the National League, and he's got a .919 save percentage. Those are absurd numbers when you look over that stretch. I know a lot of people would be like, he's protected in Boston, but he had numerous years in Buffalo where he put up great numbers and he wasn't protected. So I think this is a great deal. Low risk in the sense of 4 years, but at the same time, I think Ottawa gets their guy for the future here.
Yeah, I agree. Totally low risk with the term. And I said that I thought if he wanted more money, he probably would have had to taken less money. I also wrote his numbers down from Buffalo. He had a .915 and a .917 his last years in Buffalo. Like, that's pretty good numbers for a team that didn't defend all that well. Let's move to Joey Daccord. He gets an extension today. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm super familiar with his game. I obviously know who he is. I've seen him play, but he hasn't played 60 games total. He started in the NHL, something around that. It's a pretty nice contract for a guy with that little amount of experience.
I think this just goes to show you what he did in the minors as well, right? He had a cup run where from the Calder Cup, he brought them to game 7. He was a workhorse. He played 26 games straight for them during that playoff run. And last year, carrying the load, playing 50 games for when Grubauer struggled, right? And I think that's something we've kind of found with Grubauer. He's injured. He struggled. He hasn't really found his identity totally in Seattle, other than the little playoff run where they knocked off the Avs. Since then, it's been a bit of a whirlwind for Grubauer. So I think locking Daccord up, but I also feel like the way the cap is going up and the way things are going, and Joey Daccord's progression into a pro goalie, into an NHL everyday guy, I think this is a pretty good value buy. He looks undersized. He just plays a little bit smaller than he is. He's a bigger guy. His dad, Brian Daccord's been a long-time goalie coach, runs Stop It Goaltending in Massachusetts. This guy is
BU as well. He works at BU.
Eats, sleeps, breathes hockey. I remember, you probably remember Evan Hamilton, my goalie partner in UMass Lowell. We actually had to go to Brian Daccord's camp. So it's great to see him, obviously having that bloodline of goaltending and getting Joey there. But I feel like this is much earned for Joey Daccord.
He's had basically one season as an NHL starter, and now next year and the year after, the Kraken are going to have $10.9 million tied up in him and Philip Grubauer. Is that a duo that can get the job done?
I think he is the guy. I just don't see Grubauer's more upside. I think we've seen the best you can get from Grubauer, and nothing against him. I kind of came up in the ranks with Grubauer. I played against him in the East Coast Hockey League, and he is a smaller guy. He kind of does everything right, but at his size, it is tricky to kind of continue, especially when the game gets to the playoff and there's a lot more traffic. And, even watching that Amazon series, you talk about every coach in playoff time, get to the net. You have to make it hard on goalies. And I think that's where Joey Daccord has a little more upside than Philip Grubauer.
Let's talk about the one extension that did not happen. The reports earlier this week, Frank confirmed them yesterday, that Igor Shesterkin turned down a long-term $11 million per year deal with the New York Rangers. Is he insane for not signing that as soon as it came across the desk? Or do you think Shesterkin can get more money?
I think he can get more money, but I still think it is absolutely insane, especially playing with a year to just float, and an injury could happen. There's so many different things that are out of your control as a goalie. So I remember my first contract offer when I went to Buffalo was 2 years. I remember talking to my dad on the phone. He was like, you got to take that deal. I ended up getting Jordan Newman, who Colby knows very well. I ended up getting another year and another about $1 million a year. So it's funny, my perspective from my situation, right? I was always looking for term and as much as I could get, where these younger guys have more confidence, right? And we're seeing it more and more where guys are going to hold teams to the flame and try to get what they can. But for me, this was a deal. I can't believe it didn't get done. And I just don't really see what else he can do to play any better than he has, right? I just feel like the other side of this deal is the fact that if he has an off year or an injury, now what happens, right? So, but he's got to play his cards, and we'll see what happens this year. It's going to be interesting.
It's also like New York. You'd think itching to stay there. Like they should be a cup contender as long as he's around. When I saw that number come across, $11 million a year to turn that down is.
And that would mean he's looking for 12.5 or more, because it's only 7 years anywhere else he signs. And now we're getting to a number where even I'm like, I'm not going there with you, buddy. I'm not. Well,
my take on that too is spread out over that 8 years after it's taxed, after you paid your agent, you're living in New York. It's not really that big sum of money when you talk about 11 million versus 12. Yes, it is a lot of money on paper and for the cap, but after it gets spread out, you guys know how the hit works. And so, but yeah, he's betting on himself and he wants to be that huge payday.
He's going to end up in Vegas not paying any income tax when both of their goalies are up after this year. That's my prediction. You heard it here.
I like it.
Carter, you said you guys know how that works. I do not know how taxes for millionaires work. That high? I don't know about you guys, but I digress. The Blue Paint with Carter Hutton. Thanks for doing this, Carter.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.